who've now turned into major contributors, right, to specific components within Linux, right? This is not little learn how to use, things, be a little better IT operator. This is fundamentally knowledge transfer at a significant scale around the world. The source code's open, and our model actually not only asks for, but demands contributions back. Now, it's a cycle. I'm not saying day one you need to know how to, do deep kernel work. But, people go from consuming to participating to contributing over time, and it makes the whole community work better. It also fosters innovation. We talk about collaboration through innovation, and it's really true. If you look at, 10 years ago, people thought Linux was Unix was reaching the end of its relative useful life, right? All the features that could be there had been added. If you look at the feature functionality of Linux today, it is dramatically leapt forward. And it's leapt forward because customers who know what they want can add it, right? At some point, you do reach a stage in a life cycle of a product where you say, based on my surveys or talking to my sales guys, we have everything their customers are saying they need. But as soon as you put the customers in charge and say, you tell us what you want, not tell us what you want, you actually develop what you want and give it to us and we'll make sure it's shared, we continue an innovation curve going far beyond when you would normally think of commoditization has come in and that there's no more innovation. It creates economic wealth and more broadly disseminates knowledge. So it fundamentally is a better, things working on its own, it's a fundamentally better way from a public policy perspective to develop and consume software. Now, with that said, let me pause for a second because a logical question is, how do you ultimately participate, right? And I'd love to tell you go out and buy Red Hat products, but I won't. Actually, I will in a minute, but I won't. Here's the first thing that I would suggest. Many of you in the room are competitors. Many of you in the room are not. How many problems do you have in your IT infrastructure that aren't really about competitive advantage? I need a storage solution for backing up my email. I don't think that's a competitive advantage for anyone. Talk to each other. Encourage your staffs across companies to talk to each other. Even if you're in the same industry, talk to each other. There are problems that you're not about competitive advantage. If you go talk to your vendors, they're going to come back with a piece of software to fix your problem that you're going to pay for. Right? You talk to systems integrators, nothing against systems integrator, they're probably going to come back with services around it. How much do you already know? How many problems have you solved that you're actually pretty proud of that you'd actually be okay sharing with somebody else if they were sharing back? Right? So, I mean, my first suggestion is go out and have a lot of coffee with other people, have lunch, talk about it. Encourage your staffs to actually talk about the problems that you're seeing and what you can do. Right? I know that sounds really, really basic, but how often have you had a problem and after you solved it, you said, God, that was really easy. I wish I'd thought of that before. How many of those problems do you really care if even someone in your industry had, but certainly somebody who's not in your industry? And how much do we do that? I think especially in IT, and I don't know if it's culture or what, we're often very, very closed about what we've done and how we've done it. Right? By just opening up and talking about, and I'm not talking about at this point sharing code, I'm just talking about saying here's how we solved XYZ problem. What's the harm in sharing that? Right? Maybe another company doesn't have to go through the same expense that you went through to develop that solution, but in the end, you'll probably save on something else where you're running into a problem. I know that sounds really, really basic, but sharing versus hoarding and the economics of abundance are extraordinarily powerful, even at a basic, how did you do this level? I also highly suggest you look at open source alternatives. Again, not just on looking at cost versus a proprietary alternative, but what it can fundamentally do in your infrastructure. I'll take a layer like virtualization. Virtualization is a hot topic now. I don't understand why anybody would ever want to put in a whole new layer in your infrastructure a piece of proprietary software. Because even if you run the economics today and you say, look, this looks great, I can save all this money with server consolidation, recognize in 3 years you're going to rebuy it. And 3 years after that, you're going to buy it again. And 3 years after that, you're going to buy it again. Right? And so if you're looking at a long term, if you're looking at layers in infrastructure, look at the open source alternatives because in general, and whether you look at operating systems, virtualization, there's already feature function, either parity or superiority in the open source projects. And what you know, if there are 5 or 6 features that aren't there, given the speed at which open source develops, either you can participate in developing them or someone else will do it for you and it'll be available in the not distant future. That's the power of the open source model. But again, I would encourage you at events like this, open up and just talk a little bit about your problems, but also the things that you've done that work particularly well. You'd be amazed at how many problems that you have in common or a problem that you've solved that someone else is not, and back and forth. The economics of abundance is extraordinarily powerful. And I do believe as we go forward, as Web 2.0, the Wikipedias of the world, the Red Hats of the world redefine economics around the economics of abundance, we will fundamentally change the way software is both developed and consumed. I think we'll see that in multiple areas around information and information content and what happens to information. But it is certainly true in terms of IT functionality. And my last pitch is we want you to all be a part of it. We don't have just customers. Our customers are our developers. So our communities and our walls are very, very porous. So I'd love for all of you to be developers for Linux, for JBoss, for our myriad products, and really see the power of both contributing and sharing, but as well as consuming the power of others. So with that said, that's a quick set of thoughts on open source. I think we're going to open it up for Q&A. It's obviously a topic I'm passionate about and happy to answer any of your questions. I have to, by the way, say for myself, I come from the airline business, and I have a timer up here, and I finished 5 seconds early. So I believe in on time.